everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, Eternally Obsessed, the podcast where I discuss anything Marvel, Star Wars, and anything else in the media I'm eternally obsessed with. Joining me for this episode, we are going to be talking about the Hawkeye Show, everything spoilers. If you've not seen the Hawkeye Show, just be aware that we will be having a spoiler-filled discussion. And to join me today talking about Hawkeye, I have none other than Liz from @New2Marvel with me on TikTok. Liz, thank you so much for joining and taking out your time to discuss Hawkeye with me today. Would you like to introduce yourself to the podcast?
Yeah, of course. I'm Liz. You may have seen me, you may not have seen me, but we're gonna have a fun time today. And Hawkeye was a great show, so it'll be great to talk about it.
Yeah, really excited to talk about Hawkeye. I think it's definitely one of the more shows that I did not anticipate to enjoy as much as I did, just because, Clint Barton has never really been one of my characters that I really cared for, but
Yeah.
I think this will be a really fun discussion to have. So without further ado, let's just, shoot right into it. That was a really, really bad joke, but but yeah, so why don't we just kind of give our non-spoiler thoughts about Hawkeye overall as a show? Why don't you go first?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think overall, it's marketed as like a Christmas show, and it really is. It has that holiday spirit to it, but I think it's nice in a way because it's not too serious, it's not too cheesy. It really has that perfect blend of both. And it's short, it's quick, and you really get a full detail on each one of these characters. So I enjoyed it. It's just something I needed at the end of the year,
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think one of my favorite parts about Hawkeye was tuning in and honestly watching it for the Christmas spirit. It's been a rough year for everyone. So having something like Hawkeye, having something Marvel, and it being Christmas was honestly one of the best gifts anyone could ask for. So having that Christmas spirit and then getting time to spend with these really new characters that we've never really seen before in the MCU, and then getting to spend a little bit more time with Clint Barton, a character that a lot of people have not really enjoyed, and actually getting to understand. Well, I wouldn't say not enjoyed, just not really seen too much of. And having a show where we get to learn a little bit more about him has also been a really great journey. So yeah, I gotta say the characters of this show were just really great time to really good time to spend time with, and also Clint Barton as well. So yeah, I gotta agree with every point you said. But without further ado, let's move on to the spoiler-filled discussion, the really meat of this episode. I guess we can start out with the characters, and what better character to not start out with than Hawkeye himself, Clint Barton. Just what did you like about him? What did you want to see more of? Everything. You can just give your thoughts.
I'm so glad that he was just kind of cynical in a way. He just felt like a babysitter for definitely the first couple episodes, which is understandable considering everything. He just wants to go home. He is tired. And it brought that characterization into the show, which I really liked. But as we progressed, as they started kind of working together, I love how they introduced skills that he had. When he was like, oh, I'm just gonna go break into this thing. Oh, let me do catch and release. So nonchalant. Which I think we always kind of taken for granted, obviously, because he has had almost no screen time. And so anytime he's, fighting with the Avengers, we're like, oh yeah, he's barely there. Well, I mean, he's a human dude, facing off with all these crazy villains. And so I'm glad that they were able to really put in all these skills of his, and then, moments here and there, his vulnerability, his kids, his heart, Natasha, of course. So much. So I love what they did with him, and definitely needed.
Yeah, no, I gotta agree with you. I think one of the best parts about Clint was how they kind of tied the idea of what it means to be a superhero with Clinton itself. And I think, some people were sort of referencing what does set Clint apart, because all the people he fought with, one of them's a super soldier, or some of them can fly, they have mechanical suits, one of them's a trained assassin, and then you just you have Clint there, and it's oh, what is your role? But he's kind of I guess I could say the most. I mean, they're all human, but he's the one who's on the ground. He's the one who's definitely taken the grunt of the injuries, and we saw that with when they were referencing his his loss of hearing, and I think that's something I'd also like to touch on is, the fact that they did show that, being a superhero does impact you, and at least to these effects. And like we saw that through Clint. So I think that was a part of his characterization I really appreciated, was how it kind of tied into the effects of being a superhero and what that does to you. And I think having that with Clint was definitely really great to see. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of going off of that, like what were your thoughts on when we kind of saw Clint with his like family, or just some of your favorite moments with Clint as a character in the show?
Any moment that his wife was there was one of my favorites. Like I always hated the trope in media where it's like, oh honey, I gotta lie to you to protect you. Like that just enrages me for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he called up Laura, I was expecting the same thing. And she was like, oh, tracksuit mafia. Okay, hold on. Like I was half expecting her to like, fly out there and start kicking ass herself, like she was so cool. And so that was a big thing for me. But especially near the end, like super big moments for me was like when he finally like connected with Elena and was like, I love Natasha too. And he was crying, she was crying, I was crying, everyone was crying. That was a pretty good moment.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely one of the bigger ones was his connection to Natasha. In some ways or more, I feel like this show really honored Natasha more than, it's me controversial. I don't know if it's a controversial take, but I feel like this show honored Natasha more than the Black Widow movie did itself, at least in terms of showing like why Natasha chose to sacrifice herself, and like what that meant to the world and to other people. I feel like it did a much better job at that, and it had a much bigger impact, because by the time that like last episode dropped, I was like, I just tune out of the finale, because I could not stop crying over Natasha and just her impact and like what that meant to Clint and Elena and all of that. So yeah, that was definitely one of the more emotional parts of the show as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're Natasha.
I know. Maybe.
Moving on from Clint, unless there's anything like you wanted to kind of bring up about him, I'm definitely not in particular. I think we can talk about like one of the standouts from the show that a lot of people loved, Elena herself. I mean, not Elena, Kate Bishop. Wow. It's long day. Sorry. Kate Bishop herself. But yeah, like I know you really loved Kate as a character, so I want to hear like what were everything about Kate and what you thought about her.
Yeah, so for me going into it, like I knew Haley Steinfeld was going to be playing her, and like I've seen Haley Steinfeld in like Pitch Perfect, like nothing crazy. I'm not a crazy big fan, so I was like, okay, cool. Nothing stood out to me. Within the 20 minutes of that first episode, I was in love with her. She was awesome, like so funny. I think she's probably one of the funniest characters in the MCU, like to date. Like her, Scott, and Thor are probably up there. But yeah, like just everything. And even rewatching it with my family, I was like waiting on the jokes to hit. And then when they hit, I would look over, I'm like, are you joking? Or are you laughing? Like, do you find her funny? Do you like her? And so I like grew attached to her way quicker than I ever expected to. And I mean, she's a kid, she's sloppy, she makes mistakes. Like, I don't know, it's real. It's not, I don't know, some superhero in a sense. She really is the street level, having bandages, having to put her mom away. I mean, they really put that kind of more in a light note than maybe reality would be, having to send your own mother to jail. Maybe they might explore that in a darker sense in the future, because I mean, that's a lot of guilt to handle. But yeah, I thought a great character introduction, and I'm gonna need a show with her and Elena like in the future ASAP.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think one of my favorite parts about Kate was how relatable she was, like someone myself who is like approaching that adult life, I guess you could say. Like I'm approaching my 20s, but I'm not quite there yet. But like she was mature in the way that she carried herself, but at the same time, like she was sloppy, she was messy, and I like that they have that, and they didn't make her out to be like this really like completely perfect like street level fighter. Like and I like that. Like she was chaotic. I think it was like it really served a strength to her character, and I think that's why a lot of people also loved her, is because they could relate to her on the like we're trying our best, but we all make mistakes. Like we're all sloppy, we're all chaotic at its best. So I think that was like a really great point with her character. And like you said, the thing with her mom, I think I feel like as much as we learned about Kate Bishop, I don't think we learned that much about Kate Bishop at the same time. Like we saw her character and her personality a lot, but I would have loved to see a little bit more of her past story, like the loss of her dad and how that affected her, and how that sort of carried her into her adulthood. I feel like we didn't really get to cover that side of her. But I think it's kind of going back to what you said, like we didn't really get to see like the more like darker area, I guess, of her. And how it's something we need to explore in the future, because I definitely feel like she has a lot of feelings that we didn't really get to see completely, that I think would have loved to explore apart from just her personality.
Yeah, for sure.
I think after Kate, we need to talk about Elena herself. What were your thoughts on Elena?
I loved Elena of Black Widow, so I was very excited when I heard that she may or may not end up in the show, and gratefully she did, because she was so funny. And again, like her chemistry, I think it truly is Florence Pugh and Haley Steinfeld's chemistry, like just as two humans that really bleeds into the production. But man, like you could put them just like in a box and film like 20 minutes of them just going back and forth about absolutely nothing, and I would give it 5 stars. I mean, it's perfect. Like, and I'm glad we finally we kind of closed that whole chapter that we had gotten at the end of Black Widow. Like, is Elena gonna come kill Clint? And she sure as hell tried. I mean, she was pretty close. And seeing the blip from her perspective, that was crazy, because every time we learn more about the blip from another person, it really adds more depth into what the experience was like. It makes it that much more scary. Yeah, especially if someone I'm convinced I would have been blipped. There's no way I would not have been blipped. So
no, I gotta agree with you. I think the blip is like one of the most scariest things in Marvel that I feel like we have not seen a lot, especially from people who are like the Avengers getting like blipped and then coming back was kind of one thing, because they kind of like knew what happened and the reason why it happened, if that makes sense. But if you're like just an average person going about your day, and like even though Yelena's like not your average person, she's still a little bit more like, she's kind of still doing her own things, she's not like really caught up in that superhero life, and then just getting blipped one day and then you're coming back the next, and it's just like, what was going on? Like, yeah, I can't imagine that feeling. And so I'm glad they've showed that in the Hawkeye show, because when they first did the blip, it didn't register with me that it was 5 years later once we saw her again, because it was in the exact same spot, it was exactly where she left, and I was like, there's no way. But like seeing it from that perspective was definitely, I think, really interesting for Marvel. And like you said, like Kate and Elena had really great chemistry together. So I think one of my favorite parts of them were their fight scenes, where it was not really a fight scene, but it was kind of a fight scene, and they'd like comment on each other's like fighting styles and their moves. And Elena is just so charming. I think the Hawkeye show made me like completely fall in love with her, and it could just be like Florence Pugh's amazing acting performance she brings as Elena. So she was a joy to watch in like on screen at any time. Absolutely. Yeah, she's lovely. Like what I don't think there's more.
What more could you want? I mean,
yeah, of course. I think after Yelena, we want to kind of talk about maybe Eleanor. I think, or do you want to talk about Eleanor or Maya? Which one do you want to start with? Whichever. How about let's start with Maya then. Maya Lopez, yeah. What were your thoughts on Maya?
Her intro was perfect. I feel like sometimes Marvel can have a hard time introducing a new character, because it's like, we only got a short amount of time. We got to fit this in. But like, I mean, they only took a couple minutes, and still I feel like I knew her like very well by the time we really got to her. And I mean, she is badass. Like if I were standing in a room with her, I would want to be several feet away, because she could beat me up. But she was awesome. I felt like, kind of balancing all of the characters kind of near like the middle end, we kind of lost a little bit, because then we started getting into the Yelena pathway. But overall, I thought it was great. The ending obviously is going to spin off into her show in the future, whatever that may be. And I'm really excited to see where that ends up going, because she seems kind of like that character that's like not really good, not really bad, just just kind of there, kicking ass along the way.
Yeah. I was really excited to see Maya. I think she was definitely one of my favorite characters coming out of the show, and like a character from Phase 4 that I'm excited to see more of. I think like for the fact that this was Maya's actress like first acting performance ever, I believe, it was impressive. Like she did really well in her first acting performance. I was taken back. I did not realize it was her first one because just her communication, the facial expressions she had, like you could see like the emotions and the tenacity and just like the tension that she was going through. So I think that was generally well. But I do have to agree with you is that they set up the Maya plot really well at the beginning and sort of introducing her, her supposed connection to Ronan, and then it kind of just like did not fall off, but they introduced Elena, and I think Maya kind of got pushed to the side, but I wouldn't say necessarily in a bad way because she is getting her own spin-off show, so her story didn't have to end in the show. But I do think like in terms of introducing a character through a show, they gave us just enough of her, but you're left wanting to see more of her, like especially her past and growing up with the character, which we're gonna discuss next, like Kingpin and what that was like. So yeah. But she was good. Going off of Maya, let's just jump right into Kingpin, I suppose. How did you feel about how they did Kingpin in the show?
Okay, the only issue I have with that, I don't really know why I'm starting with an issue instead of a compliment, is during that fight scene with Kate, like he was like flinging her around. Like it not, there's no problem with being that strong, but it almost seemed like comically like how strong he was, like looking back on it. And I don't know if that was just like a post-production thing or if they really, jacked him up for this, but I am very glad that they brought back the actor because obviously that brings in so many questions, especially, I don't know if you've talked about No Way Home yet, but things that happen in No Way Home. So many questions. And he's a great actor. I've seen the first season of Daredevil. I feel like Kingpin's in that one, but that was a long time ago. But yeah, I'm excited to see the future of him. And there's no way he is dead. I do not believe it for a moment, especially when people were bringing in the receipts of the comics and they're like, this exactly happened in the comics. He's just gonna be blind. So that's what I believe, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think he's dead. I think for people, I don't like if they didn't show the shot of him falling in Marvel, even if they don't show how a person died, they always show the dead body at least. So like I don't believe he's dead for that reason because the camera just panned out. But we did get him for one episode. I have seen the first season of Daredevil, so I was really excited to see Kingpin returning. There's that one scene from Daredevil, and I know you're doing your rewatch right now, so I don't know. Do you want me to like give you spoilers, or should we keep it? I don't know.
If it's within the first season, it should be fine because I've seen the first season. It's just been a hot minute.
Yeah. But that scene of like him where he's like slamming, like he kills someone with the car door.
Yeah.
Like I was like, when you watch it, it's graphic, like on the Daredevil show. But I think to some extent, like Marvel Studios has never gotten that graphic, and the fact that they're bringing in someone from another Marvel property who has done these kinds of things, like it makes you kind of excited because it kind of shows like Marvel may be willing to take a new direction in the types of content they're introducing, and hopefully the more graphic side starts with Kingpin and then probably feeds into something like Moon Knight and Blade where we get like these graphic content. So I think that's what I'm excited to see with Kingpin. But yeah, he was great. I think he was like pretty good. I did wish we saw more of him, or maybe he would have been introduced earlier, but I do think Hawkeye did have a different plot lines following, so keeping him towards the last episode wasn't the most terrible thing either. I think I just wanted to see like Kingpin really badly, but I'm interested in seeing like what's your theory about him and No Way Home, because we have discussed No Way Home on the podcast and we did do a spoiler episode. So I'll just say preface spoilers for No Way Home, but I'm sure most people have seen the movie by now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, especially just because Matt Murdock is back, like I don't know, like how does this work? Do we get them straight from the Daredevil universe? Are we just happening to use these actors because they portray these characters well? Like, do Kingpin and Matt Murdock have a connection, like a previous connection in the MCU, or will this, will they recognize each other? I guess, well, if they're both blind at this point, they probably won't see each other, but there's a laugh or two. So who knows? I have no idea. And it's a lot of questions that are posed.
Yeah,
So I'm really curious to find out.
I definitely agree. Like, I don't. I'm confused on like, is the events of Daredevil taking place in the MCU the same time as everything else, or like how? Because I would assume so, because that's how Matt Murdock came into this before, the mess of the whole multiverse. So he obviously couldn't have just been like pulled in from the multiverse or something, I guess.
Exactly.
So I think it'd be really interesting to see what Marvel does with the events of Daredevil, and it's like, yeah, it's just been happening in the MCU, just haven't seen it, or is this
Right.
like the Matt Murdock of the MCU and there's another Daredevil, but they just brought the Charlie Cox back as an actor because
Yeah.
they
I don't
wanted
know,
to
because obviously like when these shows were first produced, they were kind of meant to be in the MCU, and then later it was backtracking. So I remember I was rewatching the first episode, and they had mentioned basically the events of Avengers. Like they didn't say it exactly, but they were alluding to it.
Yeah.
And obviously that was back then. So I don't know. And obviously they leave it vague for a reason, so people can fight about it on TikTok. But who knows?
Yeah, fight and theorize. No, I think it'd be really interesting to see the route that Marvel decides to take in terms of explaining where these characters have been this whole time and just the events of what we've seen them in the past. But I think the last character, like specific character that I wanted to talk about is Eleanor herself. I think for me, like Eleanor was probably the most kind of disappointing character in the show, just because I feel like in the beginning, and I don't know if it's just like everyone was like theorizing her to be this like big villain and stuff, and then towards the end she like really wasn't. For her it was just about like protecting the family. So I don't know if I was a little disappointed because of that. But I think for me, she was like the character I probably least enjoyed out of the whole show. Like she was there, like the actors did a really great job. I think I wish, kind of similar to Kate, I wish we really got to see things from Eleanor's perspective a little bit more. But other than that, like, I don't know, maybe we'll see her again. Like, who knows?
Right. It would have been cool to like see the years between the father's death and nowadays, and her capitalizing on Kingpin, because the way they made it seem was, okay, well, the dad owed money, but Eleanor was, doing her thing and vibing with it. She had no problems and she kept going. And I mentioned this in a video, but again, it's like, it's not that I really wanted Hawkeye to be dark, and I'm not mad about how light and fluffy it is. I absolutely have no problem with it, but so many things are being alluded to that we don't talk about. I mean, like, Eleanor owned a security company. Kate used it to track down Hawkeye, maybe 3 seconds. Do you know how many deaths are Eleanor's fault?
Yeah.
Because Kingpin had hits, boom, instantly, there's my weapon, take it out. I mean, like, it's crazy how much is implicated on her that, like, just because we don't want to get that dark, we don't touch on. But I mean, she must have been a big role in so much.
Yeah. No, I do agree. I think one of the things with like Hawkeye, and that was a little disappointing, at least in terms of the story and how it was, I wouldn't say structured or disappointing, but is they alluded to a lot of things that like certain characters may have done in the past that was dark, but they didn't really like go into it. Like even with Ronin, I feel like for Hawkeye himself as Ronin, I think the weakest part of Clint's character was we didn't really get to explore that side of Ronin. Like we understood why Clint did it, but like the regrets or something, or like why he stopped doing it. I think I just wish we saw a little bit more of like the whole idea with Ronin, because I feel like that was something that was lacking from within the show.
Yeah.
It's just those exploration of like those more darker sides of like the implications of what Eleanor has done, or what Ronin has done as well. So
right. Yeah, for sure.
That was definitely missing. I think we can talk about Jack, like just for fun, because
just for fun,
poor dude.
I know, he just liked his swords. That was it. He just had a hobby, and people stereotyped him as a murderer villain. I don't know, but at the end, he was just having fun stabbing people. I mean, what more could you ask for on Christmas? But
yeah, I love, like, out of everything that was going on, the LARPers and Jack were just like, we're just there to have fun and vibe, and we get to
work. They're like, I'm living my dream right now. Like, I could ask for nothing more. Yeah. That
I
was
think they,
pretty much
yeah.
the extent of Jack for me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he like didn't play a major role. He was kind of just there to, I guess, like lighten the mood at certain moments.
Yeah, I had suspicion here and there, you know,
But
direct, you know, fans looking at a suspect when it's not actually him.
mhm.
But
But nothing more than that for him. But he was a fun addition. That's
yeah.
pretty much what I gotta say too. We did touch a little bit on like character duos with like Kate and Yelena, but I was curious on what were your thoughts about seeing like Hawkeye and sort of Kate together in itself.
I loved their dynamic, just you know, almost like big brother, little sister, or maybe like father son, just like Kate being annoying in her own way, just like blowing up his phone, like, oh, I know you missed me, like, you know, and Clint wants absolutely nothing to do with it. And like for me, that's just a hilarious dynamic. Like, and so I'm so glad they did that. And you know, I was expecting Clint to be retired by the end. And so now that he's not retired, you know, like he's not, you know, looking for trouble, but they didn't officially, you know, hang up his hat or anything. So who knows where it's gonna take us in the future.
Oh yeah. I think I'd be really curious to see like I do agree with you about the sort of like father and daughter dynamic they had to some extent. I think with Kate, I guess with Clint, she was sort of looking for that within him as well. I guess she just really wanted someone to, sort of be that father figure to her that she never had. And
Mhm.
Clint was like the perfect one, and that she got looped up
Yeah,
into this whole mess. So, but I
right.
do agree, like I love their thing with like Kate was constantly annoying him, and Clint was just like, please leave me alone. Like I don't want anything to do with you.
Exactly.
But she was pretty persistent. But yeah, I think within them, what was like one of your favorite moments of them as a duo together?
Let me think. Okay. One of the really emotional moments actually is when he was on the phone with Nathaniel and he couldn't hear, and she was listening, writing down what was happening, and he was talking, like, just, I don't know, that was a super vulnerable moment, and like Marvel did it really well. It was like beautifully shot too. And so that moment really brought like the heart and soul back into that episode, and I loved it.
Yeah, I think that was a really touching moment to see. I think it really showed like Kate's, like even though how chaotic Kate is, I think people often overlook the fact that she is very caring, and it shows through her moments with Clint, especially the way that like she asks him questions and the discussions that she tries to have with him about like Natasha and being Ronin. I think kind of showed through that. So
Mhm.
I do agree that like those small moments between them was done just really well. I think for me, I'm trying to think of like, I think for me, I really love that little montage of them building the trick arrows, or the one where like Clint is
Yeah.
teaching her how to bandage herself after
Mhm.
that first fight. I think that was definitely one of my favorite things coming out of like their moments together. It was just really wholesome to see, and also like seeing Kate learn how to be your hero from Clint. I thought that was really cute.
Yeah,
Seeing the two
for
of them.
sure.
Um, I guess I know we did touch on Kate and Yelena, so unless you have more to say about them, I think we can kind of move on from them. But the one I was kind of curious about was this a character we forgot to discuss, which was Kazi. What are your thoughts on him?
You know, I liked him in a way. Like he was a slippery little snake. Like, you know, and I'm not. It seems like he did have a hand. Like he did very well know what happened to Maya's dad, but it's not entirely crystal clear. Up until that point, I was kind of like, you know, kind of like him. But again, I think, you know, he's just playing the game. He's just, you know, I mean, I guess anybody dealing with Kingpin is probably, you know, in over their heads and doing their best. But, you know, I liked him. I didn't have too big of a problem with him until the, you know, the end and that reveal.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I was actually kind of sad that I'm pretty sure he died. No, yeah, I think he is dead. I don't know. And it looks like Maya did
Did
kill
he?
him, right?
I don't know. I'm trying to
He's
think.
I thought I thought he was. It looked like she'd like killed him with the arrow or whatever. I think
Google
so.
help. Is
Yeah.
Kazi dead?
But no, I think he was. What does Google say?
I'm on the Cinemaholic website. I'm very confused. Okay, however,
Some people are like theorizing that he's not actually dead.
mhm.
I guess it's like one of those like Kingpin things, like,
Oh, you're right. I completely forgot about this scene, actually. Yeah, he impresses my one last time. Dang. I don't know. I mean, I guess he could maybe be revived because it says the last time we see him on screen, he is still breathing.
oh,
So, but like he's looking like he's gonna die. So
right.
possibility we might see him in the future, but I completely forgot about that scene, to be completely honest. I really do like, I don't know, I think I just like his energy. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't be mad if they, brought him back, whether he's
Right,
evil
right.
Kingpin or not. I don't care, but I
Yeah.
liked his vibe, besides
No,
the,
yeah, yeah.
murderous part, but
Yeah, I think my favorite part with him was like him and Maya's dynamic together.
yeah,
Um,
agreed.
the way that he like helped, I don't want to say help Maya, but like the communication that he kind of carried between like other people and Maya was done really well. But
Mhm.
it was pretty frustrating to see towards the end when it was kind of obvious that he knew about Maya's father's death and
Mhm.
like she didn't. I was like,
Right.
why?
Yeah, I wish we kind of got more into like if he had been like, I really care about you, and obviously I care about you in general, but like I really care about you right now because like I just feel so guilty and my hands were tied, there was nothing I could do, and so I
Mhm,
decided to take care of you instead. I think that could have been a
mhm.
whole thing we
Right,
could have dove into if we had more
right.
time.
Yeah. I think like in general, Hawkeye, there were just so many plot lines going on, but there were
Mhm.
not as many plot lines as maybe some of the other shows. And I feel like to some extent, each of them were fleshed out just enough, but you still wanted to
Mhm.
see more of them. I feel like, I don't know if Hawkeye would have been better with just like maybe 8 episodes. I don't
Mhm.
know, or just six, like just an extra episode to like flesh out certain plot lines because they gave us just
Yeah.
enough, but then you're like, I have all these other questions.
Yeah. And like
So
honestly, not until we were talking about it now did I realize that there were a couple things like I was perfectly content with everything. And we get on here, I'm thinking, wait a minute, hold on. Like we could dive deeper into that. Why didn't we?
right, right. No, I think, like you don't really realize these things when you watch. I feel like when you discuss them with someone and you get all like these different perspectives, you start thinking. But I will say, in terms of like managing sort of different plot lines, I think Hawkeye did it best because I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier tried to do a similar thing where they had different plot lines going on. Like you had
Mm-hmm.
Sam's character and his family, and you had Bucky, and then you also had like the government and whatever they were trying to do, and what were the
John
Flag
Walker and everything.
Smashers.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Walker and Flag Smashers. And for me, like I love Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It is my favorite like Disney Plus show, but I definitely do think that where its weakness was in so many plot lines and towards the end, like some of them didn't deliver. But at least with
Mm-hmm.
Hawkeye, even though they had different plot lines, like they had Elena, they had Hawkeye and Kate, and they also had like the Tracksuit Mafia and Kingpin, they gave us just enough to where it was a satisfying ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, I want to talk about yeah, I think that kind of talks about plot and story, but do you have like anything else to say about like the plot or the story or just, your thoughts on it?
I mean, I thought, it was pretty good. Like we had kind of said, it was balancing a couple of things. I think they did it decently well,
Yeah.
nothing crazy. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think they did what they had set out to do. And, I think that's enough. I think that's a check box somewhere.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Definitely. There's definitely like it did like, it just set out what it wanted to do. So I think that was one of the strengths of the show to enjoy with Hawkeye itself.
mhm.
From that, what was like let's talk about action because action was an integral part to the show. It's a street level Marvel show. What were your thoughts on
Mhm.
the actions, the trick arrows, your favorite action scene, anything like that?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I mean, I liked how it was real. People got hurt, they had to bandage themselves up. I loved the trick arrows. I mean, it was goofy, but it was goofy in a good way. I was rewatching it with my dad, and the Pym arrow thing came on, and I looked over at him, and he was like, "That was so lame." I was like, "What are you talking about? That was the coolest thing." He was like, this is a cop out. I was like, well, he's friends with Ant-Man, you know. But I enjoyed the trick arrows. Maybe not everybody did, but I thought it was fun. And I like that he made them himself. I love that she didn't know which was which, and then by the end she had like a little label maker and slapping them on there. So it was definitely fun. And I like how it was more than just shooting arrows. Like there's a lot of hand-to-hand combat involved. Like it could have been a Hawkeye show where he only shot arrows for every single fight scene ever, you know. So
But it wasn't. And no, I think for me the trick arrows were also super fun. It actually I think it added more of a dimension to the characters themselves, maybe the characters of Clint more, because I feel like every time we've seen Clint with the arrows, it's just always been him and a bow and arrow. But when you start putting in the trick arrows and show how he creates them, it really shows like he puts a lot of thought and effort into like what he's going to be doing, rather than he's not just like a guy with a bow and arrow, you know, like so to some extent it gave him a dimension to his character. I think my favorite trick arrow was that one with the purple goo. And I'm really curious to see how, like, because we know for the Avengers that Tony Stark like helped provide, you know, like the suits and the weapons, like they were part of the Avengers. But now that Tony Stark is gone, like when did that whole like friendship and or alliance between like Pym Technologies and the Avengers start? Especially like how does like Clint connect with Ant-Man? Is it like from Endgame maybe?
Or maybe from Civil War. They were on the same side, right?
Yeah, that is true. Civil War, is it from Endgame? Is it because they're both dads? Like, is that
I know.
is
Like
that their connection?
their kids have play dates together. I don't know.
Oh my god, like that would be so cute if they showed like Cassie and Nathaniel having a play date together, because they're like almost this. I think they're probably. Oh wait, no, Cassie is now older actually. Now that I think about it.
Because she grew up.
That's true.
I know.
Oh,
The blip.
His Clint's kid did get blipped, right? So that's why
his whole family
didn't grow up. But then Cassie was not.
It was
blipped.
the opposite.
So it's maybe it is that, like, I don't know, I think it could be they're just like two doting dads. So I guess that was their sort of like point of friendship. And then eventually he got in touch with Hank Pym, and I guess Hank Pym was like, okay, I'll start giving you arrows. I just think that would have been like really cute to like, maybe that's how I don't know if you heard, but like Paul Rudd was like, Ant-Man was supposed to make a cameo in Hawkeye, I believe.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, so maybe that was like who knows, like it could have been like a scene of Clint Barton asking him about the arrows. I think that maybe could have been that cameo scene that like Paul Rudd.
That would have been cool.
Supposed to come in as. Guess we'll never know.
I guess we will never know.
Let's talk about Steve Rogers' musical.
Listen,
that was
I'm not anti-musical. I do like musicals here and there, but I'm also not like crazy about musicals. Like I can enjoy one. I thought it was cute in its place within the show. Like I liked how it kind of had it as a background. You saw part of it and then you started moving towards other things. I was not a fan of just sitting there through it, seeing it again, but I'm happy for anybody else who did. And I didn't even like think about this, but I love all the people on TikTok who were like, we should have had somebody in the audience. Why was Elena not sitting there? You know, she wanted her tour of New York City. And after seeing those people, I was like, well, yeah, why didn't they do that? So I kind of hopped on that bandwagon. But I thought it was cute. I thought it was funny. It was something to look forward to after seeing like a preview of it. Personally, not really my jam, but it is what it is.
I do agree with you. I'm not like the biggest fan of musicals. Like I'll watch a musical here and there. Like Tick Tick Boom, I really enjoyed, but other than that, like I'm not crazy about musicals.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, like cool, like they're doing Rogers the musical. I'm interested to see what they show in it, and it was fun to watch the first time around, but I don't know how I felt about that being the post-credit scene. Like, yes, the post-credit scenes don't necessarily have to set up anything, but I feel like if you're gonna have a show, there's no two post-credit scenes, so it could have, like, the post-credit scene should have set up something a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or if you're gonna put the musical, at least show like maybe some of the Avengers watching the musical and their reaction to it.
Yeah, exactly.
The clip of the musical. So that was
I know, like, I made a video like saying like, oh, it wasn't really my thing, and naturally, of course, I had comments that were like, Marvel fans are so ungrateful. Not everything has, and I was like, listen, I like don't really care that much, like, but it would have been nice because we do have a gap for quite a bit of time with no new Marvel content. which has already been so awful for my TikTok content because I just don't even know what to do anymore. I'm just like doing random stuff now, like so. But yeah, so it would have been nice to see like a little something about something, you know, would have been cool to see something about Moon Knight. But
Yeah.
hopefully that'll be the next project. Hopefully that'll come like February, March, if the rumors are true.
I don't think it'll be February because they've just not started promo, but let's hope that it's March.
I know.
I hope their release date. And not even like the future, but I know that they recorded like a Kingpin and Echo post-credit scene apparently, and I was just like, why don't you just put that? Because like we want to know what happens in the Echo show if it's gonna be a spin-off. So
exactly. Or you literally, what you could have done is they could have taken out the Maya Kingpin part and then just put it as a post-credit scene, and I think people would have been a lot happier like with that, you know.
Yeah, I know that is true. Like if they had the confrontation, because it wasn't even nearly necessary to have that in the episode. So
right. Or I mean, or you could have like, you know, that confrontation and then the post-credit scene is him getting up, you know, or like whatever.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I just thought like it was a waste. Like in my opinion, I know people are gonna be like, hey, it's just a post-credit scene and stuff. No, but like you want something from a post-credit scene, you know?
Exactly.
So, like the Sharon Carter post-credit scene was actually good, and like the Loki one was pretty good. But yeah, the WandaVision, like all of those had like decent post-credit scenes, and then this one was just like Rogers the musical, and it's like, well, what does that tell me?
Right. I mean, you never know. Who knows? Maybe Rogers the musical will be coming back in the next Avengers movie.
I mean, it was taking place while Spider-Man No Way Home was there. So
you never know.
Oh, it would have been so like imagine this is such a missed opportunity, but why didn't they show Rogers the musical and then they could have showed Peter Parker sitting in the audience? Like
that would have been so sad, actually. But
that would have been really sad. Oh, I guess the reason they did No Way Home come out before Hawkeye finale? It did, right?
Yeah.
So that would have been a really interesting post-credit scene, I think, when you had those two events together. But yeah, I guess, you know, it's fine. And I do agree the TikTok content like from Marvel is definitely been difficult because even I don't know what to do and I can only upload so much about the Eternals. And
I'm like, I know if I'm a big fan of Star Wars, I'm a big fan of Harry Potter, and I was like, you know, I could kind of talk about the Boba Fett show. The moment I start doing that, my views tank. And so it's like, I guess I could just kind of talk about Daredevil for a little bit and maybe Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. People ask me every day, they're like, have you watched more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? I was like, no, I'm tired. I haven't had time. And they're like, you've been on episode 5 for like 2 months now. I'm like, I know. I'm very well aware. I try, you know, because it's still so cheesy at this point that it's really hard to get through. But it's picking up finally.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like I was on live yesterday and I was like, hey, like, well, what do I watch? The thing is, first, I need time to watch. I don't even know if I have like time to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie, because with me, the way I watch a lot of my movies is I watch like a section of it 1 hour one day and then I'll like finish it later down the road. And that's fine with shows. But like with a movie, it's like, oh, let me watch the X-Men right now. But I don't have time. Like I was looking at my schedule for this quarter and I'm like, where the fuck do I have time each day to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie? So
yeah, that's how I am. I am just exhausted all the time. So
I don't know, I'm really tired. I've been really tired this week. So
I literally watched the most recent Daredevil episode that I'm on, which is episode 2, because I was in a mandatory Zoom meeting and I wasn't listening, but I like had to be there with my camera on, so I just had my iPad like right in front and I was just like watching. So hopefully my school never finds this.
No, it's okay. I've just been so busy with like school and work, and I'm just like, I don't have time. I don't even have time to like do TikTok, and it sucks because sometimes you have like these ideas that you want to do for series, or like you have these ideas where you want to do like high quality content, and I'm like, I don't have time to like make these like videos. So then I just like end up posting like a really like low-key video, which I love creating too, but you know, it's like I want to do more. But
I know I'm the same way.
I don't have time.
Like I've been meaning to make a video on like how to get started in the MCU. And also I have this whole video idea about how I would change Far From Home to be a better Spider-Man movie. Right. And I just don't feel like explaining it because it's like gonna be like a whole thing. I'm like, deal with that another day.
Yeah. Like I feel like sometimes you just like need, like I feel like sometimes as much as like time I put into the content and I want to do all this creative stuff, like there's I just like I don't have the time to dedicate to it. So then I just
I
like end up
know.
posting like really chill things, and I'm just
I
like,
know.
it's fun, but I know like I have so much more creative potential, but I just don't
No,
have the
it's just
time to do
yeah.
it. It's
It's the
just like,
same here. So
huh, it's
oh well.
exhausting. Oh
It is
well,
what
I
it
guess we'll
is.
see. Hopefully, better. It might get better towards the year. Maybe that's a project for the summer. You know, if I don't have an
Yeah.
internship or something, that's what I'm going to be doing. Um, but yeah. Um. Anyways, so Hawkeye, I honestly think the last thing we can kind of talk about is just the future, like of where you
Mhm.
think we're going to be seeing like any of the characters from Hawkeye, whether that be Kate, Elena, Hawkeye himself,
Yeah,
and
I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of like future projects that like could possibly like include them. And I don't know, like especially because like, we don't know when this whole next Avengers movie is going to
yeah,
happen, like
yeah,
and I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, well, okay, if the next Avengers happens, like who's all gonna be in it? Like, we're gonna have Sam. I mean, but like, is Hawkeye and Kate gonna be there? Is Elena gonna be there? Like, what about Scott? Like, what about the entirety of Wakanda? Like, especially because we're coming from the movies with massive, massive Avengers like casting. If we want to go back to more of a smaller film, who are we cutting out kind of thing. And so I just have no idea.
hmm yeah. I think there were like rumors of like Kate Bishop popping up in a few movies, and I don't know if you saw that recent rumor about the Black Widow 2 movie with Kate and Elena in
I
it.
I've seen that rumor, but like I have not been able to like verify it at
Yeah,
all.
I
Like every
haven't.
time I see something about it, it just seems so like out of somebody's
Oh,
butt right now. So I haven't.
outlandish. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, like where's the source? Like, like I have a couple credible sources on like Twitter that I like
hmm
I trust, and like I haven't seen them say anything yet. So I'm like waiting
Yeah.
on something
Yeah,
actual to
I'll
come
just
out.
see like, yeah, I'll just like a headline. I'll be like, oh, Kate Bishop is in Multiverse of Madness. And I'm like, or I don't know if it was Multiverse of Madness that they said, I think maybe Quantum Mania or something.
Mm.
One of the upcoming
I could
movies.
see her being in Quantumania. I
Yeah.
could
I think
see
it
that
was
maybe happening.
I think it was Quantum Mania that they said she would be in because like her being in Multiverse of Madness is the most random thing ever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna search it up. I'm gonna see if there were that report of her being in Quantum Mania actually. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So yeah. So there were like reports earlier December of
Mhm.
2021 saying that she might come into Quantum Mania, which would be the show or which would be the project that would make the most sense for her to next
Yeah.
appear in. I think that's the one. Yeah, that would be
Right. Okay. I
um,
could see it.
I'm curious to see how she'd fit in though, because like the thing about Quantum Mania that like I'm confused about is you're having like this dude named King and you're having like this whole timeline and multiverse, and what is Scott Lang supposed to do about it? Like that stuff is more like magic. Like Scott Lang is like he's
I don't
more for
know.
grounded. I'm just like
I
I know
don't
he's
know.
quantum, but it's like what is he
Maybe it'll put some respect on his name. Maybe people will see him as a
yeah.
badass.
But
But
yeah.
what do you think about like people saying that Kang is the new next big bad? Like he is the next Thanos.
I
Like, do
don't think
you
I
believe
mean
that?
I mean the thing with Kang is from what I've heard in the comics, there's like different variants of him. So I feel
Mhm.
like Kang, I don't know, like really know what defines Kang himself. Maybe like Scott and Hope in Quantum Mania, they first see like a one evil version of Kang, but
Mhm.
like the next Kang variant, like another Kang variant, could be like the actual big bad that the Avengers have to fight. I feel like I don't know
Right.
if that's the approach they take with Kang, it would make sense. But I don't know. I feel like there could be a lot of big bads because
Yeah.
you have celestials now like whoa, what are they going to do with
Yeah.
that? You have like celestials, that's a big bad. You have you can have something from Shang-Chi like the 10 rings, like we still don't know the origin of the
Mhm.
10 rings, you know, like I think
Yeah.
there's the chance for a lot of big bads, but I do think Kang is the one that would kind of make the most sense. It would just
Tie
have to
everything
be
in together.
different
Like, I
variants.
mean, I feel like at least I don't know, because I think about how you see Thanos in the Avengers post-credit scene. And so that's like, gosh, how many movies before Infinity War and Endgame? Like that's quite a bit. That's the first
15
time you see him.
times.
So that's a lot of buildup beforehand. And obviously hindsight is 2020. So like I feel like Kang maybe could be the one that sorry if you hear my dog, she is scratching her collar right now.
Okay.
But like I feel like King could be the one who could connect like the Celestials along with this other stuff, because like time is such a confusing thing in itself. And I don't know. I really have no idea.
Yeah, and who's not to mention like Doctor Strange, like Wanda. I don't know, like
Yeah.
if Wanda, like in Multiverse of Madness, or if she's gonna be the big bad in Multiverse of Madness, like will she continue being that for
Yeah.
the rest of the
No
MCU?
idea.
Like who knows? So yeah, I think I'm
All a
excited to see
mystery.
that. It's all a mystery, but I'm excited to see what they do with the next phase
Yeah.
of the MCU, because there's so much we haven't seen. We still haven't seen the whole like vampire, and like Moon Knight is a whole another world, and I'm just like, how are you gonna?
Mhm. I have
How
no
is
idea.
like we have no idea, but it's like how is someone like Moon Knight gonna interact with someone like I don't know Scott Lang, because they're very different people, and like imagine like the fact that they're in the same universe now. It's like where is Moon Knight gonna be in the next one? I don't know. Guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Seriously. I feel like there were so many like predictions for No Way Home because we kind of had like a basis of certain things to grapple off of. But at this point, like anything's possible. Like I made a video the other day. I'm like, y'all are talking about Wanda variants. What if Wong is the variant? Like what if that Wong is a bad guy? Like we just have no idea. Everything is up in the air.
I think we'll have a more solid idea once Multiverse of Madness comes out. There'll definitely be more of like a solid idea of kind of figuring out like, okay, this is the direction phase 4 is going in. I think No Way Home was like sort of the step up. Like the Loki show was a little bit of like, okay, here's an idea we're exploring, here's the multiverse. The No Way Home was like, okay, like here's how the multiverse can be done. And then Doctor Strange is like, okay, like this is in like full motion, and this is like the MCU is like now going to be different unit. Like I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. I think Doctor Strange will be the one to give us a lot of the answers for how the pieces of the puzzle like fit together, and then maybe the projects sort of bouncing off of Doctor Strange, like could be Quantumania and stuff, will give us a better idea. But like, how much more bigger can you get than Quantumania? Like,
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to wait and see. But yeah. I think do you have any last things you wanted to add about the Hawkeye show?
I think I'm good.
Yeah. I think I'm good too. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode to talk about the Hawkeye show. It's really great to talk to you and just talk about the Hawkeye show. I hope to everyone listening, I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Make sure to, like review, rate the podcast, follow it on all the socials. Everything's in the description. And thank you, Liz, for joining me. I will leave all of Liz's social media in the descriptions as well. Go check her out for anything and everything Marvel related. She works really hard on the content she creates, and she's super sweet. So yeah, definitely go check her out. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and have a good day.